rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone. Oh, my goodness. Did I forget to do something? I may have. Yes, I did. Okay. Now you guys should see it. Hopefully, once you get things going here. Yeah. That was my fault. Technical difficulties only in the ID10T key not being kicked. Yeah, that's right. The ID10T key. In other words, technical difficulties with this guy right here. For those of you who are on Rumble. Yeah, I got distracted, man. I was doing other things. Anyway. That's interesting. Yeah, there we go. I'm being asked some questions. Bonnie, I'm gonna be honest with you. Let's why don't you put that together in a email, and I'll be able to answer those. Anyway, well, that's kind of weird. Oh well, I guess yeah. I guess we got. I got distracted. I'm sorry. I got distracted and things are all over the place. Yeah, I should be live. Rumble is being funky again. Rumble is being funky. Yeah, Rumble is not working. I see. Oh, there we go. Nope, I've got Rumble. Try resetting. Yeah, because I have Rumble right now. I see my own Rumble stream. So there you go. Yeah. So my news has me. All right. So that's cool. Yeah. Because I see myself. And no, I'm not looking in a mirror. I promise. I'm seeing myself. All right. Well, Rumble hasn't really been all that friendly to me here recently. I'm going to be honest with you. I've been trying to work with them on the back end, and I've been having challenges, and they're there's just they're all over. It's kind of interesting. I don't know why, but I promise you I am seeing myself on Rumble. Let's see. How can I do this? How could I show you that I see myself? Well, let's do this. There we go. And let's go here, and we'll drop that. And give it a second. Catch up. Yep. There we go. Up. Yeah. See, you can hear myself. See, you can hear myself. So hear myself. There you go. Now I'm gonna get a. There you go. Now you're gonna get an echo. So there we go. I just cut myself out. Look at that. Woo. See, I'm seeing myself. Anyway. All right. Let me stop that. Stop that crap. Ugh. Anyway. All right. Okay. Go away. So, yeah, I have no idea what's going on with Rumble. All right, let's get moving again. So let's go ahead and get things kicked off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight's pledge is U.S. Abbey Girl. That's right, U.S. Abbey Girl is up for the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mine, please stand or remove your hat if you're wearing one, like me. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with U.S. Abbey Girl as she recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and of course, I thank you, U.S. Abbey Girl, for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting or performing the pledge in your style. Take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, and attach it to an email. Send that email off to me. Send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will get you into the rotation. I have 24 of these items. I'd like to get 26 by the end of 2026. And, if you would, I would appreciate it if you use your phone, go ahead and use your, use the share option. That's the SHARE option to be able to send it off to me and, send it off to fans at AmericanPerspective.online, and I will get you into the rotation. All righty. Okay, so, sound is back and so on and so forth. I don't know what's going on. Rumble seems to be having some challenges here recently, and I have really no idea why. All right, so tonight, of course, is...
Down to business.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
That's right, it's Whiskey Wednesday. It's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. And if you want to know what, this is what I'm drinking tonight. Yeah, I know, kind of boring. Mountaineer. I've been drinking it for a little bit. Yeah, it's because the bottle is most full. So there it is, Mountaineer out of Jackson Hole, Wyoming. It's a blend, a bourbon blend. And, of course, it is in the True Grit Roots Network glass. There you go. True Networks right here. True Grit Roots Network, I should say, right here in the glass. And can't forget the stones. They're there in the bottom. Woo. Oh, that's some smooth. Anyway, so there you go. All right. And for them, of course, let's head on over and I'll do the headline spot. If you want to listen to some great blues or outlaw country, yeah, True Grit Roots Network, TGRN. Come and listen to one of our signature channels, whether it's Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio or Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio. You can head on over to tgrn.net, which is where I am right now on the screen. You can head on over to tgrn.net and you can try by listening directly through your browser right there. Or you can download our app from either the App Store or Google Play. You can pick up both apps at both of at those locations. take us with you. Grab. G is into it tonight. He's saying blues music that reminds you of constitutional stitching. TGRN. Yeah, I don't know about that, but all right. Anyway, head on over to tgrn.net and pick up either one of our apps, either one or both, and whatever suits your fancy that day. Listen to both of them on your mobile device. Take us with you, especially coming up on the 250th anniversary of this great country. Take one of us with you. We can be all over the country on your mobile devices while you're doing all the stuff that you're going to be doing for celebrating the 250th anniversary. And if you want, you can help us out by showing off your love for TGRN or Walter Trout or Dallas Moore by heading over to our shop. You can get there by clicking the menu item that I'm flashing in red up on the screen, or go to shop.tgrn.net. That's shop.tgrn.net. And you'll be able to pick up either a t-shirt, a hoodie, or a cap that are basically decked out with one of the three logos. Pick one up for every day of the week. So you will always have either TGRN, Dallas Moore, or Walter Trout all across your repertoire for every single day of the week. Head on over to shop.tgrn.net and pick up your swag today. Show your love for TGRN. TGRN stands for True Grit Roots Network. We are based out of Austin, Texas. All right. Well, folks, I got to tell you, just over the last little while here, this is really kind of concerning. You would think that people would have the intelligence to be able to figure out when things are good and when things are bad. And for an example, the late media commentator Andrew Breitbart, he has been attributed to the phrase and the concept that culture is upstream, culture is upstream from politics. His quote was actually politics is downstream of culture, but politics is downstream from culture is what he said. And basically what that means is that societal values, which are shaped by media, art, social norms, religion, they basically demonstrate, meaning that politics is a reflection of a value system of a culture. And if that's the case, I'm just gonna point out that, boy, there's some areas of the country that are really in trouble. Now, Ben Shapiro suggests that the relationship is actually cyclical, meaning that for Ben, politics shapes culture and vice versa. So Ben Shapiro, of course, points out that cultural acceptance of certain issues can lead to political victories, which are then used to further entrench those cultural changes. I'm not exactly sure which one of those is correct, although I can tell you that Ben Shapiro's version seems to be what is happening today in terms of our politics. But all in all, I'm concerned. And so should a lot of other people be concerned. I've got a list, or I've got a few articles and references to things that are happening today that give me great pause in terms of our culture that we have. And I've talked about this sporadically on different episodes, but this is definitely definitely one of the things that is of great concern to me. Of great concern to me here because of the fact that, well, our politics and certain events that are going on today are demonstrating that our culture is moving far and away from where it should be, in my opinion. So let's take a look at that. First, let's talk about, oh yes, none other than Graham Plattner. Graham Plattner, yeah. You know, the guy that is scandal-plagued and did all kinds of stuff, had a Nazi tattoo, so on and so forth. Well, apparently, Graham Plattner won enough votes. He actually won enough, more than 50%, in his primary race. Let's be honest, I mean, his opponent kind of screwed herself by saying she was done. Anyway, I think in a way she was kind of hoping that maybe his scandals would have been enough to wake people up and get them to cut things down. But he did. He won with over 50% of the vote, so there's no runoffs or anything like that. And, yeah, he is going to advance to go up against Susan Collins. Now, as far as, you know, the primaries are concerned, I mean, pretty much everybody already knew. It was no surprise. Let's be honest. It's no surprise that the Democrats will put forward a disgusting, morally bankrupt individual, and they win. There's no surprise there. This is part of what I'm talking about in terms of our culture. Because the leftists have modified our culture. They have changed the American culture to where things like sexting other women while married, having a Nazi tattoo, claiming that he had no idea what it was, which it's a total lie, and we know it, among other things, and just the fact that he is essentially a disgusting individual. He plays as though he is the working man's man, but yet he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. And that's another thing that the Democrats tend to do quite a bit. They tend to glom onto people who come from the very social strata by which they claim to hate. I mean, think about this. You've got Bernie Sanders, who's a millionaire. Everybody loves him in the Democrat Party. They think that he is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And he has never worked in his entire life. You have people like AOC, who claims that she came from the Bronx when she actually didn't. She came from a place upstate New York, from a upper middle class family. You have people like Jasmine Crockett. We got something on her, hopefully a little bit later, but Jasmine Crockett went to private schools, claims that she's from the hood and ghetto, and she even does her code switching to get herself into ghetto atmosphere. And people eat it up. Now, what's strange about all this is that I find it hard to believe, although I could be completely wrong on this, but I find it hard to believe that millions upon millions of people are really that stupid. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a certain segment of society that I would say is definitely stupid. For an example, anyone who bothers to follow Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, or the, who is that guy? Nick Fuentes. Those people are definitely stupid. And I'm kind of seeing a few others that are around there. For an example, the Hodge twins. I've put them into the sort of category. And I thought, sometimes it's really hard to tell based on their social media posts and things like that as to which camp they're actually falling into. These are people who started off with a huge following, and then something happened. I don't know what it was. Maybe they got a hold of the same, water as everybody else. Especially those on the left. Like all of a sudden they started drinking the same freaking Kool-Aid. I don't know. It just makes no sense to me as to why all of a sudden millions of people are being scammed or sucked into all of this. And when I sit and I wonder about this and I think about it, I actually, believe it or not, I actually do have a bit of a conclusion. And the only thing that I can come up with, which realistically ties into my religious beliefs, is that we are getting closer and closer to the end of time. That we are getting closer to the point in the Bible where bad is good and good is bad. Because that's one of the signs that as we look forward to the second coming of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, we sit and appear things that are once bad are now good. And this is something that I'm seriously, it's like I'm watching this movie in slow motion. And I don't know what the end of the movie is because I haven't seen it yet, even though technically we have. Because we've read the book. We know the ending, folks. If you follow the Bible, if you believe in the Bible, you know the ending. In the end, God wins. That's the end. There you go. There's the ending. Spoiler alert. The end of times, God wins. That's it. But it's the fascination of watching the entire destruction of what would essentially be our society in slow motion being torn down. This is why I don't seem to understand how people can go and vote for a guy like Graham Plattner, as an example. Or do things like what's happening in California right now. Or the resulting hate that was thrown out by the protesters of Carmelo Anthony. Well, let's just start off with, just for fun, let's go ahead and start off with a Scott Jennings truth bomb. Uh-oh. Oh, wrong one. Wait a minute. There we go. Boy, I am having a hard time tonight. First, I couldn't get everything working, and Was running around trying to get stuff in and set up, and now I can't even press the right buttons. Oh boy. Anyway, Scott Jennings was talking about Graham Plattner as an example, and well, let's just take a listen to what he had to say.
Well, as far as I know, of all the names you just mentioned, only one person had a Nazi tattoo and has chosen to lie about it, and that's Graham Plattner. I mean, he roots for American military deaths. He's mocking rape victims. He demeans rural Americans. He's been abusive to women. I mean, this is what Democrats are signing off on. This is their most celebrated Senate candidate in the country right now. And in fact, his campaign was bragging that after all of these things came out, he raised $200,000 online. You have Democrats across the country investing in Nazi tattoo, abusive to women guy. I mean, that's what the Democrats are signing off on. That's what they're lining up for. You see pictures on the screen right now of Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna was out there believing everything that was ever said, every false narrative about Brett Kavanaugh. And now he's arm in arm with a guy who's clearly abusive to women. I mean, this is the most insane amount of hypocrisy in the pursuit of political power. Some Democrats have said, I'm not comfortable with this. I suspect a few more will come. They had a perfectly viable candidate up there in Janet Mills, but they decided to go with this, scumbag, fake oyster farmer, Nazi tattoo guy instead. It's crazy. No, I'm not licking my chops at this. I'm weeping. We need a Democratic Party that can stand up to people like this, not promote them.
Chuck.
So, yeah. Something about Graham Plattner that I didn't even think about, and Scott Jennings brought it up. His oyster farm that he claims that he did, the oyster farm, apparently, allegedly, the oyster farm didn't get an actual website until about 9 months after Graham Plattner's own campaign website got put up. I don't know if that timing is correct. I don't even know if the actual statement is correct, but supposedly the oyster farm that he is supposedly the one who, oh yeah, I'm just a working staff. That oyster farm fed into, I think it's his mother's restaurant only. Like his mother's restaurant was the only customer from his oyster farm. I mean, we're talking about some serious nepotism here in a lot of these cases. Folks, what does this show? What does this demonstrate for us in terms of our culture? Well, apparently being a Nazi is no longer a problem. Having a semi-permanent, almost permanent, semi-permanent, I don't know, because you can technically get them sort of removed. But the semi-permanent last known association with Nazism, the Totenkampf, or Totenkampf, I don't know how it's pronounced. Anyway, he had that, was proud of it, was bragging about it to everybody, including his girlfriends. He, obviously showed it. Taking off his shirt, there's images and videos of him with it. He posted it on social media sites and things like that, trying to get women interested in him. And yet here he is with this thing, and they deem that acceptable. Now, I could excuse a tattoo, but when it's attached to things like sexting other women while married, potentially, allegedly, physically and potentially emotionally abusing a couple of his past girlfriends, yeah, that could be a bit of a problem too. Along with some of his other things, like getting disgustingly aroused due to porta potty adventures, saying that the beheading of a U.S. military service member, or just the death of a U.S. military service member, was, applauded. He applauded that. And he used to be a part of the military. He used to be a Marine. Yeah, I just don't see where that kind of an individual is necessarily interested in keeping America great or even making America great. But hey, that seems to be where the culture up in Maine, at least for the Democrats, has gone for now. We'll have to see in November if the whole state can muster up enough people to vote for Susan Collins again. Anyway, I'm going to step off from the Graham Plattner bashing train for the moment, and let's shift our sights to California. Now, California is another place where you can take a look at all of the debauchery and all of the worrisome activities. I mean, they've got Hollyweird over there. They have the worship of all their Hollywood superstars that are into nothing but drugs and sex and God knows what else for the most part. The vast majority of them are, and they all know it. Where you had people like Harvey Weinstein, having, what do they call them, couch auditions or whatever they call those. Yeah, the movie industry, yes. Let's go. Let's head on over there. Like, that's the place of the country that people want to be a part of. Well, here's part of the problem that you have in California. You have a guy by the name of Spencer Pratt. Nice guy. Yes, he was a internet sensation, reality TV star, but that's relatively irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. He was talking to the Californians, and his platform was essentially, hey, look, I'm not like them. I am like you. My house burnt down in the Palisades fire. I can't even get it rebuilt because of all the red tape and all the crap that is going on with Mayor Karen Bass. Well, here's one problem with doing things in California. California has been buried by leftist lunatics for decades. They set their sights on the Golden State and felt, well, let's see what we can do here to kind of destroy what's going on. Now, when I'm wrong, I'm going to say I'm wrong, and I was wrong. The other day, I mentioned that, the California has to have a postmark on the ballot by Election Day. Well, guess what? No, it doesn't. You would think it would be, as far as like election integrity goes, you would think that people would be, hey, you know what? Voter ID, that's good. We need voter ID, but it has to be actual government issued ID. Well, like I told you the other night, nope. You could pretty much use just the last 4 digits of your social security number or make one up. It doesn't matter. They don't even bother to check it. You could use your gym membership card as a possible ID to identify yourself. There's also all kinds of things that they say that California says, oh, yes, we're real stringent. We check and verify signatures all the time. Yeah. I don't know if anybody has ever tried signing their name. There's only one person in my life that I could tell you signed their name exactly the same way every single time. And that was my stepfather, because he spent many days, if not weeks and months, practicing that signature such that if you didn't know any better, you would think it was done by an auto pen because it was so perfect. But I know for a fact that not everybody's signature is exactly the same. And I also know for a fact that very many people can go and look at a signature and be like, okay, yeah, that looks close enough, which is what these people do, because they're in a bit of a hurry to try and get signatures lined up. But remember what I was telling you and this is where I was wrong. Remember when I was telling you that, hey, they had to, have the postmark on there by election day, but that they would accept it up to 7 days afterward. Well, it turns out I was wrong about that. Here's the actual statute. California Code Regulations, Title II, Section 20991. Standards for valid and invalid vote by mail ballots. Well, they don't even need to have a signature, by the way. They don't. Look at here. Under item number 6. Voters uses a mark on both the vote by mail ballot identification envelope and the affidavit for voter registration, and the mark compares. Now think about this. Instead of a signature, you just use a mark. Let's say it's an X. I wonder how many people are just using a mark because they cannot write. Yeah, think about that for a second. They cannot write their signature, and so they use a mark. And that mark happens to be the same on when they registered and when the vote came in. How easy would it be to have 100,000 people sign up with just a mark? And they don't even tell you that the mark has to be of a certain kind with, sort of like a password. Oh, it has to have a number and a symbol and an uppercase and a lowercase and all this other stuff for security. No, it doesn't have to have any of that. It could be as simple as just a dot. That's a mark. By the law, it says that. But here's the part that really caught my eye. It says right here. Item number 7, vote by mail ballot is postmarked or date stamped on or before election day by a bona fide private mail delivery service and received by the elections official in accordance to blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, that one you would think was exactly what I thought, which is, hey, it has to be postmarked or date stamped on or before election day, right? You would think that would end it right there. No. Because right under that, vote by mail ballot identification envelope has no dated postmark. The postmark is illegible, and there is no date stamp for receipt from a bona fide private mail delivery service, but the voter has dated the vote by mail identification envelope, or the envelope otherwise indicates that the ballot was executed on or before election day and the ballot was received by elections officials in accordance with Election Code Section 3020. Now, what is Election Code 3020? Well, that just says that it's received up to 7 days after Election Day. So what this thing says right here is that, no, we don't have to have an official postmark. We don't even have to have the post office, doesn't even have to have it dated at all. In fact, it doesn't even need to show up at the post office. This mail-in ballot, all somebody has to do is put on the external envelope the election day date. Yeah. The election day date. And it can be received up to 7 days after. Up to 7 days after. See, now people talk about election fraud and they keep, even I have been guilty of this. Saying election fraud is like this big conspiracy, that it is illegal, that it is anything. No. what happened here, which is exactly what I mentioned the other night. The California Democrats having no integrity whatsoever, having no morals, having no standards, having no ethics. They went ahead and codified ways that you can cheat. They codified it. Said, well, it's within the law. Oh, it's within the law for me to go ahead and just write on an envelope. You can just write on an envelope, hey, you know what? I'm voting. So let's say it's on a Tuesday, right? And I actually fill out the ballot on a Friday, but I post-date the check, or pre-date, I guess. I don't know. Post-date the check for back on that Tuesday. Yeah, that's what's happening. That's one of the things that can be happening here. But it's legal. Yep. It's still legal. Oh, and what's even worse, they don't even need to use the official ballot. Oh, yes, right here. Voter, instead of using their official ballot, marks a sample ballot and mails it in the vote by mail identification envelope, and the signature on the identification envelope compares with the signatures in the voter registration record. Huh. Oh, by the way, you don't even have to return your ballot in an individually identified envelope. Meaning something that has a barcode that is directly to you? No. Because check this out. 2 or more ballots are returned in one vote by mail ballot identification envelope, and there is an equal number of distinct signatures on the identification envelope that can be attributed to eligible vote by mail voters. And each of these signatures compares with the signatures in the application or applicable voters registration record. We don't even have to return it properly in its own envelope. We can stuff 2 or more all into one envelope and send it back. And as long as there's enough signatures in the outside that match up with a supposed signature on file somewhere, or mark, can't forget that, or mark, then it's considered legal. Yeah. Yeah. See, here's the problem, folks. And we talk about culture. We talk about, culture. Well, apparently it's acceptable to not have any kind of verification whatsoever. And how many illegals could they put together into a room and just say, hey, look, I'm going to have all of you register with just a mark. You don't even need to sign a signature card. We're just going to register you with a mark, and you guys are all going to use the exact same mark. It's kind of like how many hundreds of ballots come back saying that Mickey Mouse is the president of the United States. I mean, seriously. How can you compete with this? I mean, I feel bad for Steve Hilton. Like I said the other night, he moves and advances toward the election, the general election against, whoever ends up being the Democrat. I think it was Xavier Becerra. And he's going to have to fight a legislature, California legislature, that allows crap like this through. How is it anybody's good idea that, hey, we can just make a mark and that'll be allowed? How? How is that? How is it that somebody who cannot even sign their own signature could be considered valid for voting? Well, somebody might look at that and go, hey, you're Jim Crow 2.0 there, buddy. Well, in today's day and age, where everybody is automatically given a public education, I don't see where anybody would necessarily need to have a mark rather than a signature to vote in our elections. This is just crazy. This is nuts. All right. Now, think about this. They're doing this this is their California regulations. So this is for their state and federal elections, because remember, federal elections right now, outside of a few regulations that have been put together, for, National Voter Registration Act, things like that. This is part of the reason why the Save America Act is so important. Jarhead asks this question, and he says, serious question. Can Trump sign an enforceable executive order that specifies needing a government issue photo ID for federal elections? I'm going to say, constitutionally speaking, no. It would probably be overturned by the courts, because the elections are clearly separated in the Constitution by the states having it unless and until Congress steps in. So technically, no. I don't think an executive order would work, especially because of the fact you have to remember executive orders are supposed to be utilized and have traditionally been utilized in order to clarify a law. And as of right now, we do not have a law that says that you need voter ID, because we have some states that require it and other states that don't. So there isn't anything until Congress passes something that says, hey, you must use voter ID. Because even right now, the 1994 Voter Registration Act, commonly known as the Motor Voter Act, all you have to do is check a box at your DMV saying, I certify that I am a citizen and I am allowed to vote in elections. And we've seen how effective that has been. So, yeah, even if he did do it, even though he's been threatening to do it, and even if he did do it, I bet it would be challenged almost immediately. The minute that he signed it, it would be in court. So, no. And again, constitutionally speaking, from a strict constitutionalist, I can tell you, I don't think that would fly. As much as I would love to see that happen, I honestly don't think that would fly. All right. Well, let's change subjects here. Let's move to Texas. There's a young man, he's 19 now. A couple of years ago, he took the life of a fellow high schooler, Austin Metcalf. And Carmelo Anthony was found guilty of murder. And we want to talk about culture and politics here. Here's an example of our culture that is a real big problem. First of all, our culture has moved toward endorsing murder. And I know that a lot of people would be looking at me like, no, we don't. Well, think about it. Our culture endorses murder of the most innocent lives you could ever have. There was a Yahoo influencer couple or whatever that had a baby 5 months old, in terms of 5 months into her pregnancy. It was identified as having Down syndrome. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I can't even imagine what that would necessarily be like. to know that your child, you take a test and have your child come out with Down syndrome, but that still doesn't mean that that life was worth anything any less, because there have been people with Down syndrome who have gone on to great things. In fact, right about the same time, there was another article where the first person ever with Down syndrome passed the bar and became a lawyer. So as of right now, we really do not have any quantifiable information that basically says that just because the baby had Down syndrome, that that baby would not have become a valuable member of society. When it comes to abortion, abortion on demand for your own pleasure and convenience is literally a form of murder. Because murder, by definition, is the taking of an innocent life, an innocent human life. That is the definition of murder. Well, how does this tie into Carmelo Anthony? Well, it's pretty simple. Here's the facts of the case. Carmelo Anthony, in his infinite wisdom at 17 years old, against the rules of the school, brought a 5-inch bladed knife on campus to a track meet. Fact number 2, Carmelo Anthony entered the opponent's tent during a rainstorm, sat in the opponent's tent, and when asked to leave, refused. He was asked to leave multiple times, and he actually even responded in a potentially violent, provoking manner by saying things like, "Hey, I'll fight you, bro," even though the individual that he was referring to was actually a much larger opponent than he was. So he obviously in the mindset, or had the mindset, of potentially getting into a violent encounter. That's fact number 2. Fact number 3. When he was pushed after refusing to leave the tent of the opponent, to which he had no right nor no purpose in being there, he responded by pulling that 5-inch blade and stabbing Austin Metcalf in the heart directly. Now, those are 3 facts of the case. Notice I did not bring race into those 3 facts, because the race is irrelevant. The race is irrelevant. Carmelo Anthony went into that tent, and he may not have entered with the 100% sole intent of causing a problem. However, because of his actions, it became a problem. Now here's the problem. Here's where the culture piece comes into play. See, under a normal culture, a normal Western culture anyway, that believes in justice, that believes in the rule of law, that believes in the order of things, Carmelo Anthony, who was found guilty, would have been found guilty anyway. and would have passed through the night. The verdict would have come back. There would have been nothing. No protesting. No burning of cities like they did with George Floyd, who died of a self-induced overdose by the coroner's own report. There would have been no burning and looting of cities. There would have been no actions taken. There would have been nothing. But rather than that, we have a group of individuals, in particular, black individuals, who have decided that regardless of the mere simple 3 facts of the case, that just because Carmelo Anthony had black skin, that he was found guilty of murder. Think about that for a second. Think about that for just 1 second. Because of the man's skin, and because of the skin of his victim, the skin color of his victim, he is automatically, based on our culture, automatically determined to be the victim. And there's another victim that happened very recently over in the UK. And if you may think, oh, this is only happening in America. No, this is happening everywhere. There was another victim over in the UK, a young man, was stabbed to death, was taken into custody by the police who were supposed to protect him. And he died, bled out by that stabbing, all because a black man said that he was essentially hurling racial slurs at the black man, when the young man definitely did not. Now think about that. You want to talk about culture here? Culture. Our culture used to be that you were innocent until proven guilty. Proven guilty. And in this particular case, Carmelo Anthony was proven to be guilty by all accounts and eyewitnesses, even by his own admission. Folks, our culture has moved away from the very basics, foundational values of society. And if you honestly believe that it's just white on black, no, it's not. So Carmelo Anthony's mother, of course, started this by immediately saying, oh yeah, it's racist that my son, who stabbed an individual at a frickin' high school game, track meet, stabbed an individual and killed him immediately. And all she did was yell racist, bias, because in her mind, the jury, which was comprised of mostly white, but not everybody was white. There wasn't a Eastern Indian person on the jury. There was at least one Asian. There were other ethnicities on the jury. And again, skin color and race means nothing if you listen to the 3 facts that I outlined. The 3 facts that I put forth. Their skin color doesn't matter. The guy brought a illegal knife to school on school grounds when he shouldn't have been. He was in an area that he shouldn't have been. He was asked to leave multiple times, didn't. Braced people aggressively when he was told that he would be forcefully moved. and then just by getting shoved, decided to stab somebody in a physical altercation and killed him. Now, all of that being said, there are people in this country who actually view things properly. Because one of the challenges, of course, is skin color, right? Wrong. It is culture. This black man, you can see in the video, this black man has it right. He was actually outside Carmelo Anthony's trial in with the protesters, and he was holding up a sign that literally said, "White Lives Matter," reportedly. We'll take a listen to what happened to him as he was outside in with the quote-unquote protesters.
I'm from Africa. I'm blacker than all of you. By far, actually.
So you're African?
Yeah. From the motherland. Born in Africa.
What part?
Hold on.
I'll tell you.
All right, I'm going to tell y'all something real quick. Black people are not exclusively from America. They're from all over the world. All over the world. They're from Africa, Australia, Great Britain, not just from America.
You know what?
Oh, that's a death threat. That's a death threat, right? Get on video. That's a death threat.
What do you say?
He said I'm going to do this to you. What does that mean?
Huh? So, for those of you that are not on, that are on the audio portion, the gentleman that he is referring to pointed fingers in a gun formation. Okay. In a gun formation, and saying that he was going to do this to you. Now, of course, all of this is again part of the alleged thing, but think about this. There are people. This young man came from Africa, was born in Ethiopia, he says. And he basically says, look, black people are not just from America. Black people are everywhere. Black people are all over. They're in Australia. They're in Africa, in Europe. I've met black people in Canada. I met black people. I met one of the nicest young ladies. She was working as a waitress in a restaurant that I went to when I was in England. She was one of the nicest young people that I have ever met. And she actually mistaken me for Canadian. Anyway, well, I played a Alveda King clip with Brandon Gill last night, and well, I guess Jasmine Crockett, yes, our favorite Jasmine Crockett, thank goodness she is gone at the end of this term. But Jasmine Crockett apparently saying, oh, and yeah, thanks for the reminder, Coco. There was a woman apparently who was sitting there saying, hey, what do I do? What do I do when we, what do I do? What do I say to my 5 boys, my 5 young black men? What do I say to them? Well, it's pretty simple. Don't bring a knife when it's not supposed to be there. Don't use it to kill somebody who is unarmed. And don't be where you're not supposed to be. I mean, I don't understand this. I really don't. And in a bit of a way, this is a cultural thing. Again, this is a cultural thing. It apparently is cultural to act like an idiot. It is a cultural thing to act like a complete and utter stupid moron in certain places. It is a cultural thing to think that you can just stand up to authority without any kind of accountability being taken after your responsibility of acting right has been thrown out the window. And by acting right, I don't mean acting conservative. Although, yeah, you could say acting conservative, but acting properly, acting socially acceptable. I mean, if you look at culture, you want to look at culture, take a look at just all the videos that are running around on the internet. Take a look. Here's an example, a perfect example. Take a look at the Knicks Spurs. Outside of the Knicks Spurs game, the Spurs, San Antonio Spurs fans were there to just go and watch and support their team. And what happened? Well, the Knicks fans started fights with them outside of the stadium. Yeah. Outside of the stadium for no reason. Take a look. You want a cultural icon or a cultural purpose? Take a look at whenever your team wins your selected sport event. Whatever it is. Here in America, it's going to be, NFL, NBA, whatever. Baseball, whatever you want to, the top three. Well, what happens? The idiots riot, turn cars over, burn dumpsters, cause all kinds of havoc. Why? Your team just won. What would you be rioting for? What is the purpose of rioting? And yet, seems to be a cultural thing to burn things that don't belong to you. When you have a city that is on the edge of winning a sports tournament and the businesses in and around the stadium are boarding up their glass, boarding up their businesses in preparation for an anticipated riot that never should happen, period. And what happens? It happens. Things burn, cause all kinds of damage and havoc and everything else. This is what our culture has become. And our politics is reflecting that culture. Because as of right now, allowing criminals to roam the streets is a common thing. Oh, we don't care that you've, jacked 15 cars or 20 cars. No, you were born, unfortunately, in the wrong neighborhood. And, just because of your upbringing, we're going to go ahead and let you go. No. See, our culture, for the most part, our culture has decided that responsibility and accountability no longer exist. Anyway, I digress. I was talking about Alveda King and Jasmine Crockett. So apparently last night, obviously, I showed you the Alveda King witnesses. Well, that continued to today. And apparently, Alveda King made a statement. And Alveda King invoked the Bible, invoked her uncle's words, Martin Luther King, in her statement. Now, she was talking about the fact that, her family and the legacy, the King family legacy, was taught to love, to repent, to forgive, to trust God, to love her fellow brothers and sisters. And that in her own upbringing, she grew up in a family that sacrificed so much for justice and reconciliation. only to spend much of her adult life, she claims, to being watched, shadowed, criticized, and even threatened because of the fact that she believes in God and Jesus Christ, the sanctity of life, and the American dream. She talks about her grandmother's family, or she talked about her grandmother's family coming from the west coast of Africa, her grandfather's family coming from Ireland, her mother's family including Cherokee roots. She said she spent her entire life living the reality that America is not a collection of competing tribes, but that America is one people under God. Well, Jasmine Crockett had to throw her unintelligent thoughts into the mix. Because apparently Jasmine Crockett shouted about how the white men had invited Alveda King to the hearing. That apparently the only diversity comes from the left side of the aisle, and that the white men from the GOP wanted to tell people of color who is fighting for who. People of color do not feel comfortable or welcomed within the GOP, which I say is a bunch of bullshit. There's a guy by the name of Wesley Hunt who would definitely have something to say about that. But apparently, Crockett speaks for everybody, because she said, or speaks for all people of color, apparently, because she said, and I quote, "That's why you have to parade someone who has the name Dr. King attached to them so that people can be confused. Because I have been reading the comments online and people are like, who is this Dr. King? Because you want them to believe that she somehow espouses who Dr. King was." Crockett apparently continued on to suggest that the GOP should have brought other members of the King family who actually understood the teachings of Martin Luther King Jr. Then she supposedly went on to educate everybody on what the late civil rights leader really meant, so that we don't get it twisted and confused, and confuse his niece, who actually grew up with Dr. King, Dr. Martin Luther King, as a uncle. Now, Crockett, of course, didn't bother to give Alveda King the ability to respond, and I'm just going to point out, just like I point out all the time, the Republican Party was founded upon one premise, and that was to get rid of slavery. The Republican Party is the one who passed the Civil Rights Act of 1965. The Republican Party is the one who passed the Women's Right to Vote Act, meaning across the board, allowing the 19th Amendment to come into play. Oh, and by the way, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a Republican. Now, Crockett decided to get up and leave. Alveda, of course, she goes, "Congresswoman," referencing Crockett. He says, "Congresswoman, I am a bit emotional. I am going to watch what I say, but it seems as though you have suggested that I am a bastard to the King family legacy. I am legitimately the daughter of the Reverend Alfred Daniel Williams King and Dr. Naomi Ruth Barber King. We are a family who loves God, and I love you. God bless you." Yeah. And by the way, Alveda King is a doctor as well. So I would love to see, I I really have and take issue with the Democrats basically saying that black people in America can go nowhere, that black people in America are being held down by the system, because I can give you examples of all kinds of black people in America who have succeeded on both sides of the aisle. Jasmine Crockett as a perfect example. She has succeeded. You have all kinds of people, whether it's actors or lawyers or Congress people, being black in America today. Being black in America today is not the stigma that it used to be. Being black in America is simply a skin color. That's it. There is nothing else to it. When you have examples like Wesley Hunt, Clarence Thomas, Tim Scott, Morgan Freeman, Samuel L. Jackson, trying to think, Ice-T, Ice Cube, however many other people that you can sit there and talk about and point to. Denzel Washington is another one. He's one that I really appreciate. Folks, I'm right on board with Morgan Freeman. There is no racism in America. The only reason that racism exists in America is because of the fact that the leftists keep bringing it back. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about a couple policies here. Well, first of all, you want to talk about a country. Well, before I move on to that, if you want to talk about a country that is outside of America that is dealing with migrants, racism, cultural problems, you can basically go nowhere than Ireland right now and England right now. I don't know if anybody saw this, but you want to talk about culture. Here's the culture that is the problem. So there was a Sudanese asylum seeker. I don't know if anybody caught this, but there was a Sudanese asylum seeker who apparently, for one reason or another, and I'm not really too sure, but there's a very graphic video that's out there. I'm not going to play it, but there's a very graphic video that's out there that shows an attack of a Sudanese man straddling a white man on the ground and attempting to behead the man with a kitchen knife. Now, this is in North Belfast, Ireland. Now, the man who was attacked has apparently lost at least one of his eyes. And this Sudanese asylum seeker, Sudanese asylum seeker, was stopped from basically killing the man by other bystanders who attacked him. But this is the point. This is the point that I'm making. You're bringing in a culture that has none of the same Western philosophies, the same Western viewpoints as what the Western culture has. See, this is why assimilation is important. And unfortunately, to those who are on the left, they don't seem to notice or care that these people do not share our values. These people don't share our principles and our values. Well, the people in Belfast, and you want to talk about protests, this actually would be a protest. And to me, a rightful protest. But it's also a riot, which basically means that it's not protest anymore. But in this particular case, the people of Belfast decided to take to the streets over this. And, well, I don't blame those folks. I really don't. I really don't. And you sit there and you look at stuff like this. And by the way, before the people came in and tried to stop the man, there was a long time where they didn't do anything. And yet people had their video cameras out. See, now back in the day, if a woman was attacked on the street, other men would come in and help her. That is not what is happening today. You want to talk about culture change and cultural shift? That is a cultural shift. We've had so many different cultural shifts over the last 40 years here in America and even across the world in Western civilization because of the fact that we in the culture seem to believe that, oh, well, we know the best and our culture is always going to work. But yet, no. No. We need to realize that there are so many other cultures on this planet that essentially they don't share our values. They don't share our system of justice and honor and rules and so on and so forth. The perfect example would be the Islamic extremists. None of them believe in the same things we do. And yet, for some damn reason, the left seems to think that we can all be a part of one world. That isn't the case. And our politics are starting to demonstrate that the culture, that idea of culture, is being erased. The American culture, the Western culture, all of that is being erased because of the fact that we are trying to, I don't know, act out some kind of a fantasy world where everybody lives in harmony. That isn't the case. And our politics are starting to demonstrate that our culture is slipping. That our culture itself is slipping. Alrighty, folks. Oh, let's move on to something a little bit more happy here. Let's go ahead and take on tonight's Pet of the Week. Tonight's Pet of the Week was submitted by none other than our own 3 Chevy. Well, we all know 3 Chevy has a pond, a koi pond in his backyard, and it is seriously a work of love and a work of art. Well, unfortunately, his situation where he has been, something occurred. His fish that he had, all those beautiful fish, unfortunately, were essentially passed on. And so he has had to restock. Well, because of another situation, he can't restock in his usual way, which basically means going down to the store and picking up the fish himself. So he decided to demonstrate and show to us what it looks like to see fish arrive, yes, literally, through the mail. So here's what he writes. He says, "Hey, Whiskey, I thought you might like to see how fish arrive through the mail. These 3 to 4 inch koi came from the company I usually buy from. But because they are usually not open to the public except by appointment, and